My mom canceled my wedding saying, "We're not funding this circus." So I know what you're probably thinking. How could a mother possibly cancel her own daughter's wedding, and not just cancel it, but do it in such a public, humiliating way, with those exact words, "We're not funding this circus"? It sounds like something out of a bad reality TV show, right? But I promise you, this is my real life, and it happened. The question I've been asking myself ever since is, was I wrong for what I did next? Tell me honestly, would you have done the same thing? Because sometimes I still second-guess myself, even though in the moment, it felt like the only choice I had. Let me take you back to the beginning, to a time when I actually believed my wedding was going to be the happiest day of my life. My fiancé, Ben, and I had been together for 5 wonderful years. He's the kindest, most supportive person I've ever met, and we'd built a beautiful life together. We shared a small apartment, 2 ridiculously fluffy cats, and a mutual love for terrible B-movies and spicy ramen. We were perfectly content, and getting married felt like the natural, joyful next step. Our engagement wasn't a grand, Pinterest, perfect affair. It was quiet and intimate, just us in our living room, with Ben getting down on one knee amidst cat toys and a half-eaten pizza. It was perfect. The initial plan was a small, intimate ceremony, maybe a backyard BBQ reception. Nothing fancy. We were both pretty laid back, and the thought of a huge, elaborate wedding actually stressed us out. But then my mom got involved. My mother, bless her heart, has always had a flair for the dramatic. And by flair for the dramatic, I mean an insatiable need for everything to be her asterisk way, on her asterisk terms, and usually bigger and more extravagant than necessary. She saw my wedding not as a celebration of Ben and me, but as an opportunity to host the social event of the year, a reflection of her own status and impeccable taste. Suddenly, my casual BBQ wedding was out the window. My mom insisted on a formal church ceremony, followed by a reception at the most expensive country club in town. She picked out a dress for me that cost more than my first car, a beautiful dress, I admit, but not my asterisk dress. She sent out invitations to over 300 people, most of whom I barely knew, but were apparently crucial for her networking. She hired a celebrity-level florist, a band that usually plays for actual celebrities, and insisted on a 7-tier cake that I was pretty sure was mostly styrofoam. My dad, who is usually the calmer, more sensible one, seemed to just nod along, avoiding eye contact whenever I tried to talk to him about the spiraling costs. I tried to push back, gently at first. "Mom, this is getting a little out of hand," I'd say, "or are you sure we need all of this?" Her response was always the same, delivered with a dismissive wave of her hand and a tight smile. "Darling, it's your special day. You deserve the best. And besides, your father and I are paying for it. Just let us give you the wedding of your dreams." And that last part, "your father and I are paying for it," was the kicker. It always shut me up. How could I complain when they were footing the bill for what was rapidly becoming a $250,000 affair? Ben, bless his patient heart, tried to support me, but even he seemed overwhelmed. He kept reminding me that the most important thing was that we were getting married, regardless of the pomp and circumstance. But I could see the stress in his eyes, too. The planning became a full-time job, not for me, but for my mother, who was micromanaging every single detail. I felt like a prop in my own wedding, a mannequin to be dressed up and paraded around. The final straw, or so I thought at the time, was the seating chart. My mom had meticulously crafted a seating plan that put all of her influential friends and business associates at the prime tables. while Ben's family and our close friends were relegated to the corners of the ballroom, practically in the kitchen. When I confronted her about it, asking why our Aunt Carol, who practically raised me, was at a table with people she didn't know, while Mrs. Henderson from her bridge club had a front row seat, she just scoffed. "Darling, Aunt Carol will understand. This is about appearances. You simply don't understand how these things work." That's when I started to feel a knot of dread in my stomach. This wasn't my wedding anymore. It was my mom's performance. But still, I held on, hoping that once the day arrived, it would all melt away, and I'd just be marrying Ben. The week before the wedding was a whirlwind of last-minute preparations, dress fittings, and increasingly frantic phone calls from my mom about floral arrangements and napkin folds. I was so exhausted, I could barely think straight. Then came the rehearsal dinner, the night before the big day. It was held at a fancy Italian restaurant, again, chosen by my mom, and filled with all 300+ guests. My mom, of course, insisted on giving a speech. She stood up, tapped her champagne glass, and with a dazzling smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, began to talk. She talked about how proud she was of me, how she had always envisioned this day, how much effort she and my father had poured into making it perfect. She even made a few veiled comments about how some people just don't appreciate the finer things in life, which felt like a direct jab at me and Ben's low-key preferences. Then she reached the crescendo of her speech. She raised her glass, looked around the room, and then, slowly, her eyes landed on me. The smile vanished. Her face hardened, and her voice, which had been so effusive, turned cold. And speaking of not appreciating things, she said, her gaze fixed on me, "It has become clear to your father and me that this entire affair is being taken for granted. We have invested a considerable sum, staggering sum, into what we believed would be a beautiful family occasion. Instead, we have been met with ingratitude, constant complaints, and frankly, a lack of understanding regarding the sacrifices we have made." My heart was pounding so hard, I could feel it in my ears. I looked at Ben, whose face was a mixture of shock and utter disbelief. My dad was staring at his plate, refusing to look up. "Therefore," my mom continued, her voice rising slightly, cutting through the stunned silence that had fallen over the room, "after much deliberation, your father and I have decided that we simply cannot continue to support this circus." She paused, letting the words hang in the air like a guillotine. "We are withdrawing our financial contribution. The wedding, as it is currently planned, is officially canceled." A gasp went through the room. People started whispering, some looking at me with pity, others with open curiosity, probably wondering what I had done to provoke such a public execution. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, all the blood drained from my face. I couldn't breathe. My own mother, at my rehearsal dinner, in front of hundreds of people, had just canceled my wedding. It was the most humiliating moment of my entire life. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have stormed out, cried, begged her to reconsider? I'm genuinely curious what your first instinct would have been. I stood there, frozen, for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. The whispers grew louder. I could feel all eyes on me, some sympathetic, some undoubtedly relishing the drama. Ben, bless him, was the first to react. He stood up, his hand immediately finding mine, squeezing it tight. He looked at my mom, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Excuse me, Mrs. Mom's last name," he said, his voice surprisingly calm despite the tension. "Are you seriously doing this right now?" My mom just gave him a condescending look. "It's already done, Ben. You heard me." That's when something in me snapped. The humiliation, the years of feeling like I was never quite good enough for her, the constant need to perform and live up to her impossible standards, it all boiled over. I pulled my hand from Ben's, not because I was mad at him, but because I needed to stand on my own 2 feet. I looked directly at my mom, a newfound clarity washing over me. The anger was there, but beneath it was a profound sense of liberation. "You know what, Mom?" I said, my voice surprisingly steady, though a little shaky. "You're absolutely right. This asterisk is asterisk a circus, and it's a circus you created. You didn't want asterisk my asterisk wedding. You wanted asterisk your asterisk wedding. You didn't want me to be happy. You wanted to be praised for throwing the biggest, most expensive party. You know what else? You're right about the funding too. We're not funding this circus anymore. Asterisk, I'm asterisk not funding this circus anymore." I looked at Ben, a silent question in my eyes. He nodded, a small, encouraging smile on his face. Then I turned back to the room, to all the stunned faces, and raised my voice, making sure everyone could hear me. "To all of you who came here tonight, thank you, but my mother has just done me a massive favor. She has freed me from pretending that this entire spectacle was ever about me and Ben. So, consider this the official announcement. The wedding planned for tomorrow is off." Another wave of gasps. My mom's face went from smug satisfaction to pure shock. She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't let her. However, I continued, a mischievous glint in my eye. "Ben and I are still getting married. We are going to have the wedding asterisk we asterisk want. A small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by the people who truly love and support us, not just for show, but for who we are." Then, I pulled out my phone. I had been carrying a small, discreet emergency fund, money Ben and I had saved for a rainy day, or, as it turned out, a spontaneous wedding. I opened a banking app and, right there, in front of everyone, I transferred a significant sum. "Ben, my love," I said, turning to him, "what do you say we get married tomorrow? Just not at the country club. And maybe, just maybe, we get married at that charming little botanical garden we loved, and then have that BBQ reception we always wanted." Ben's face lit up. "I'd love nothing more," he said, pulling me into a hug. "You know what, Mom?" I said, turning back to her one last time, my voice dripping with sweet, cold satisfaction. "Since you've already invested so much in this circus, how about you consider this an early wedding gift? Because Ben and I are going to take all that money you just spent on this rehearsal dinner, and we're going to have the most beautiful, authentic, and asterisk debt-free asterisk wedding anyone has ever seen. And you know what the best part is? You're not invited." The silence in the room was deafening. My mom's face was beet red, her mouth agape. My dad finally looked up, a strange mix of horror and, dare I say, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. I grabbed Ben's hand, and we walked out of that restaurant, leaving behind a bewildered crowd and a furious mother. We left my family in the dust. That night, Ben and I made a flurry of phone calls. We called our closest friends and family, explaining what had happened. To my utter surprise and relief, everyone was incredibly supportive. Our friend Sarah, who worked at the botanical garden, managed to pull some strings and secure a small, private area for us the very next day. Another friend, Aunc C. de manera inconscient, offered to take pictures. Estaras impediendo que tu mente simile la perdida, a fantastic cook, immediately offered to cater a simple BBQ. The next day, Ben and I got married. It wasn't the lavish affair my mom had planned. It was simple, beautiful, and filled with so much love and genuine joy. I wore a simple white sundress I already owned, Ben wore a linen suit. Our vows were heartfelt and real. We laughed, we cried happy tears, and we celebrated with the people who truly mattered. My mom called incessantly that day, sending angry texts. I ignored them all. My dad, however, sent me a quiet message. "I'm sorry, and congratulations." It wasn't much, but it was a start. In the aftermath, my relationship with my mom became even more strained, almost non-existent. She was furious, of course, telling anyone who would listen how ungrateful and selfish I was. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. I had chosen my happiness, my marriage, and my peace over her approval. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most empowering. Ben and I are happier than ever. Our simple wedding was perfect, a true reflection of us. We often look back and laugh, sometimes, at the sheer absurdity of it all. We even joke that my mom inadvertently gave us the best wedding gift of all, the freedom to be ourselves. So, that's my story. It was a messy, public, and incredibly painful experience, but it led me to a place of genuine happiness and freedom. The moral of the story, I think, is that sometimes you have to choose yourself, even if it means cutting ties with the people who are supposed to love you the most. You have to stand up for what you believe in, for your own happiness, and for the kind of life you want to build. Because if you don't, you might just find yourself a prop in someone else's circus. Like this video, if you were on my side, if you think I did the right thing. Subscribe for more stories like this, where people navigate impossible family drama and come out stronger on the other side. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'd really love to hear your take. I'll see you all in the next story.